So when I was introducing you, I mentioned that your first business was when you were still in high school at
Yeah.
17. You started a like a lot of
A
kids do,
lot of
right? A lawn
kids.
mowing and landscaping business, right? I mean,
Yep.
the kid that's been taking care of my yard, he just went off to college, and now
Yeah.
his brother's taking
Yeah,
it
and his
over,
brother's taking it
right?
on. Yeah, a mini succession
That's
plan
right,
right
because
there.
he's still in high school.
Yep.
So they've got guys working for them. It's fantastic. And you sold it. 7 years later, and you said you grew it exponentially.
Mhm.
I mean, like, how does that happen with the kid? Like, where did you learn that?
That is such a good
Was,
question.
was
So,
it
yeah,
innate? Did you read a book?
maybe all
did,
above,
did you figure it
so
out?
yeah, no, so I think that so, yeah, I know how I did it. So one was always good mentors. So obviously my dad was in this business, right? He was a big Price Waterhouse consultant and had worked his way
Yeah.
all the way down
Yep.
through lower middle market, the owners that we've been talking about, to
Hmm.
small family business. And so, I've always had a great mentor in dad. And I've always ran my business, even though we didn't call it back then value acceleration, what we call it today. We ran it with his methodology and thought process in mind.
Sure.
But I'd like to think that I've always been very coachable and always been like very curious. So
Hmm.
taking on a bunch of different knowledge and kind of spitting it back out in my own way and trying to morph
Hmm.
my own path. And then just like a lot of dedication and time. I don't know if it's a regret, but I certainly did not have like your typical teenage or even in your 20s lifestyle, right? I can remember, I was an average student in school, not because I was an idiot, because I just didn't apply myself. Because for the most time,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I actually started that business at the desk in my geometry class. So I was a
Yeah.
janitor before that, and I was like, man, this is getting old. So I think I want to, I'm just going to mow lawns. It's easy. I can make it happen. And then, flash forward, you have like a dozen employees, 7 trucks, like a pretty large operation. But
Hmm.
then when I went to college for a year, primarily, I mean, my parents laugh about it now because I was the first entrepreneur in the family, and they're like, dude, you got to go to college. Like, you're not going to mow lawns the rest of your life.
Hmm.
So I reluctantly did. And, I went there and, I can remember sitting under my lofted bed at my desk with my headphones on while my dorm, where my roommate was like,
Hmm.
playing video games and hanging out and missing class. And so I think like a lot of dedication work, and then kind of typical entrepreneur story, right? Like trial and error. Like I didn't have like a unique product that I manufactured, like the
Right.
company that I had. So I knew how to work a
Hmm.
lawnmower, but I had no idea how to quote, estimate, how to
Hmm.
actually appropriately mow a lawn. So I ended up dropping out of college my first year at a more traditional college and going to horticulture school for a year. So I did that and learned a lot of the technicalities. So when a property manager was walking their property and he said, "Hey Scott, like why is my tree dying?" I didn't look at them and say, "Well, I'll have to come back and maybe Google that answer for you." I actually knew it. So I
Yeah.
did some investment there, but kind of what I said earlier. For me, it's always been about purposeful growth. It's about challenging
Hmm.
yourself. It's about dedication and
Yeah.
hard work, and it's about continued learning and having mentors. And I think that allowed us to not only scale our business, but actually fulfill the stuff that we were selling as well.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think
Right.
that that's probably my journey.
Yeah. Got it. So you had mentioned that Chris owns 51% of the business. You own 39%. Where's
Yeah.
that other 10%?
So no, I 49%. So it's basically yeah,
49%. Sorry, I
51,
misunderstood. Okay.
and made me true first generation form to knock my dad a little bit if he's listening. Doesn't want to relinquish control, like probably many family business owners or partners out there
Yeah,
listening to
right.
your show have, right? Dad has
Hmm.
wanted to maintain control. So it's 51
Yeah.
49. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So you've got 16 employees. You're privately owned. What's the benefit? I mean, do you give them stock? Is there any value
Sure.
for them to be with you?
Yeah, I think absolutely right. So, we have a culture of value acceleration. So kind of the bigger question too that kind of comes from this is what we get a lot is how do you train your employees with the mindset to build a company of value, not just focused on maybe the
Hmm.
role or even I think what most employees are naturally concentrated on. What it boils down to is income generation. How do we have profitable revenue? And so for us, it's about income and value. And so, yeah, we do. We have, I think it's part of our culture. So we have profit sharing
Good.
programs. We have
Yeah.
incentive based
Hmm.
programs for value creation type projects. But I think it's also culture wise, right? We're a company that took the Google thing and said, look, I think Google is one of the first companies to instate unlimited vacation. So we have things like unlimited vacation here, which makes it a little bit
Mhm.
difficult in a 16-person company. But nonetheless, I think it's
Mhm.
also a benefit that's allowed us to grow. I think most people here have like a really good work-life balance, which I think by replenishing themselves away from the office actually makes them
Mhm.
a lot more productive when they're here.
I
And
agree.
I'd like to think that Chris and I, as owners, really relinquish control, really trying to build a business that is independent of us and build kind of at least have some concepts of a decentralized type organization where
Mhm.
we're really empowering the teams to make their own decisions along the way and be able to
Right.
feel a little bit more like an owner, even though you might not be. And I think that with
Mhm.
those and maybe some of our core values in mind, I think it makes a very unique and interesting place to work. And there's not a chance in hell that we could grow the company that we have over the 10 years that we've owned it without unbelievably talented and great
Mhm.
people that like the opportunity and also like rolling up their sleeves and kind of having going in it with us.
Right. Tell me a little bit about the mistakes you've made over the past, 10 years from a
I can tell
leadership
you,
standpoint.
when people ask me this question now, kind of coming out of the pandemic, it was being almost like okay being stagnant, like not having
Mm.
this, not challenging yourself to
Mhm.
continuously evolve and innovate. And I can tell you that the pandemic helped us realize that, or all of our products at the time, if you rewound or
Mhm.
kind of rewind to 2019, were delivered in an in-person fashion. Particularly, take our certification, our credentialing
Right.
program.
Right.
You would fly into a typically a university where we would host an in-person program for a week. And not only, if you think about it, I didn't know it then, right? But if you think about it now, not only is that basically not scalable, right? So if I want to be adding 2,000 plus credential holders each year, I'm going to be flying all over the country. And at the time, I was already traveling 220 days out of the year. So I can remember sitting
Yikes.
at our executive retreat in 2019, thinking about getting to 10,000 and saying, I don't know how the hell I'm going to do this. And I don't know how I'm going to build that model, let alone a profitable model, because now I got to pay all these people to fly everywhere, all the faculty members, all this stuff. I don't
Right. Right.
quite at the time, and maybe being entrepreneur, like we'll find the way, but we didn't know at the time how. And I
Mhm.
think that once the pandemic hit, we had all these people that had signed up for our credential with no way to deliver it. So we had to pivot to this online platform that we wanted to replicate the in-person as much as we can with the collaborative group work and some of the other networking opportunities that comes along with having this diverse group of advisors together. And if I the most recent
Mhm.
lesson I learned there was just kind of being kind of cool and okay with like the current way of doing business and not ever,
Mhm.
not ever thinking forward in terms of like strategy and how do I get there, but not necessarily thinking about, okay, how does the business scale and warp? Is there a different and better way to deliver the education? And the pandemic has allowed us to continuously evolve that. And I would
Mhm.
also say managing people. I think that one of the things I really learned through the pandemic is a lot more empathy, became way more emotionally intelligent, and became way more in tune to, I think, the way people want to be led today, and particularly with the newer generations, right? I think that a
Mhm.
person that's 45 or 35 or 25 wants to be led in a different way that somebody that is 60, 65, or
Mhm.
70. And it's
Right.
not bad or good, it's just different. And
Mhm.
me being an athlete, me being in my landscaping company, I had a more militant way of leadership, right? A very
Mhm.
hierarchy, very centralized,
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
militant way. And honestly, it worked inside the landscaping company, right? You had foremen, they gave direction to the people, and people responded with a yes, sir, kind of military type mentality. You get into our business today, you have like highly intellectual people that have
Mhm.
MBAs and high levels of education. And outside of that are people outside of work that want a balance of life and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
And so, changing to this more of a decentralized type business has allowed us to evolve the way we think about our people. And
Mhm.
we've won, talk about awards. We've won awards the past 2 years around best employer of the year. And so the
Mhm.
change in mentality there and it was really not to get too deep, I guess, but it was certainly an inward look at myself, at the way I was being a leader to the people that worked here at EPI, and really changing the way I thought about that.
Carol Schultz here. Thanks for watching this excerpt from Authentically Successful. The conversation doesn't end there. So if you want to hear this episode in full and all my conversations with many other successful founders and CEOs, please visit verticalelevation.com/podcast.